The Winter Olympic Games, and we want spring, hashtag we want spring. Yeah, I mean, we are definitely longing for some warmer temperatures, I think. Most of us, at least the people I'm talking to, are kind of tired of winter. Maybe you are too. Yeah, we're not really seeing any hints of spring just yet. If anything, we actually see a fairly potent system by next week, possibly bringing us another big swath of snow. But that's next week. Let's deal with the here and now, and let's look back on the weekend that it was. You do that, right? You're doing some exercise and bouncing around there. So great stuff. We do actually see the possibility of a big storm. They'll add a little bit more snowfall on by next week. So our meteorologists are watching those computer models really closely. And of course, many people were watching very closely this past weekend on the hockey game. So we dominate hockey and curling. It's ours, no question. We do have the snow squall warnings in place for Midwestern Ontario, Bruce Peninsula toward Owen Sound, Sauble Beach, Kincardine up toward Orillia and Midland. Possibility of seeing locally upwards of 10 to 15 centimeters. That would be very localized, just with the trough that's moving through. Overall, though, if we see anything, it would just be in the form of some light scattered flurries for the GTA through this afternoon, largely looking at high pressure in place. So let's take a look at our conditions and what we can expect in terms of the 7-day forecast. It stays cold. We have an extreme cold weather alert already issued now for Toronto for tonight as the temperatures drop to below the -20 wind chill values. And we're going to stay cold for the better part of this week. By the time we get to Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, there is the possibility of a U.S. southeast low developing and moving up and bringing us yet more snowfall. Well, here's the good news. Once we have cold air settling in place, we're not necessarily in the storm track. So not looking at any big storms coming through, but the cold will be in place. It's good news, though, when you have beautiful ice sculptures and you want to keep them looking fresh and beautiful, right? Issued for Toronto now, so lots of cold air in place. So the storm track, actually, there's some indication that by next week, we may actually see another fairly potent low pressure system moving through, but this week is looking fair. So how do we dress for these conditions? But again, with the temperatures being what they are, you add on top of that a 20 to 40 kilometer per hour wind, and it brings those wind chills down into those mid-teens and mid-20s overnight. So high pressure for the most part, not looking at any storm tracks moving through. The 7-day forecast, though, keeps us cold. And in Toronto by Thursday, there is again the possibility of a little bit of flurry activity, but it's not until we get to about this point, and then if we were to draw into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, that there's the possibility, and our meteorologists are watching that very closely on the models, the computer models, to see whether or not we get a U.S. low moving up the U.S. eastern seaboard and bringing us some snowfall. Temperatures are staying cold. Thanks so much, Kevin. Yeah, in Hamilton, you're going to have to bundle up for wind chills of -14, -15 throughout the afternoon. So lots of cold air in place. And we're not really seeing much of a change for the next many days. In fact, the rest of this week looks to be cold. That cold Arctic Siberian air is settling in not only across Ontario, get into these dark purples here throughout the overnights, but across a large portion of the country as well. But you know what? It's okay. Well, let's take a look at our weather. Again, winds from the west-northwest generally today will be between 15 and 25 kilometers per hour. We have this trough coming through. That could result in some lake enhancement around, especially Midwestern Ontario, so we'll be watching for that. And as Kevin was alluding to in Hamilton there, that we may see the possibility of flurries day by day, but no big storms in the forecast. It's all about the cold. Again, you can see the probabilities are staying fairly low over the next many days, but there is the chance of seeing flurries, and there's lots of cold air in place. In Toronto, in Hamilton, in Barrie, temperatures here, look at this, minus teens, -20s. In fact, for the city of Toronto, there is a cold weather alert already in place because of the cold that will persist. High pressure, a few flurries expected this week. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. But as Jacqueline was mentioning, you do need to have some open water, and as is the case here for Lake Michigan and especially Lake Ontario, there is still lots of available open water to get some lake effect. We do have generally west-northwest winds today that are anywhere between 15 and 25 kilometers per hour, so not a terribly windy day, but it does add insult to injury when you have cold temperatures in place. Let's go down to Hamilton and check in with Kevin. Thanks so much, Kevin. Yeah, absolutely. And we do have that trough. We could see a little bit of scattered flurry activity around Toronto. Cold weather alert in place for the city of Toronto. So lots of cold air in place. Winds this evening are going to contribute to wind chills in the minus mid-teens, and it will get awfully cold overnight tonight, and there isn't really any break in sight in terms of the cold. So as Kevin was mentioning, we're not necessarily on a storm track. It's a fairly benign pattern for storms, although there is some indication that by the time we get to next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, in that time frame, there may be a significant storm system brewing in the southeast U.S., coming up the U.S. eastern seaboard and bringing us more snow. For the time being, though, it's cold.